Welcome back to Hockey Eastern Ontario's Rule of the Week, where each week we take a rule from the Hockey Canada rulebook and break it down for our officials, our players, and our coaches so that they can better understand the rule and how it's applied in a game situation. This week's viewer mailbag comes to us from Peter C. in Russell, Ontario. Peter writes, "Hey Sean, I've been a referee for a long time. I'm still making lots of mistakes on the ice. How do you handle it when you make mistakes?" Mistakes. I've never had that actually happen. I've never made a mistake as a referee. This is this thing. But I guess it happens to other people. Take a deep breath and get back focused on the game and go from there. Really, people have this problem? This week, we're going to talk to you a little bit about GIR writing, game incident reports, how to do it properly, and things to avoid. Stay tuned. This week, we're going to talk a little bit about game incident reporting. This is something that we do in a game where we have a certain type of penalty that has to get entered into the system. And it's shared, by the way, with a number of people. So it's really important that we do it properly, accurately, and correctly. So we're going to give you some tips today on how to do that. Let's jump into the slides. A game incident report, or GIR, must be completed for any misconduct, game misconduct, gross misconduct, or match penalty. A TTM report, so this is on our Total Team Management site, must also be submitted for other situations, including maltreatment complaints not witnessed by officials, players removing their helmets on the ice after the game, official injury, spectator rejection, etc. The report must, I repeat, must be submitted as soon as possible after the game. We have been having some trouble with this, where officials are submitting the GIR several days after an incident or up to a week after an incident. This is not acceptable. You have to get the GIR entered into the system within 24 hours. Thanks for your help with this. Remember that the people reading the report were not present at the game, so you need to paint a logical picture of the event. You need to describe it in such a way that they can understand what happened and your justification for the penalty. Do not share any personal views on what you think a player, coach may have been thinking or intended. Report only the facts. When reporting a checking from behind, always include the degree of impact in the report. The player was hitting the numbers with a minimal degree of impact. If you write, for example, unable to protect themselves, then it should be a match penalty. You should also include the degree of impact for other penalties as well, whether it be slashing, head contact, kneeing, etc. If you are a linesperson who reported an incident to the referee, which resulted in a penalty that requires a game incident report, please write down your view of the incident and email it to the referee so they can include it in the GIR. If you want the GIR to be reviewed before submission, select the Send Notification to RIC for Review box and then Save GIR in Progress. Then, please send an email to the RIC to let them know that there's a report for them to review. After it's reviewed and you've made any necessary adjustments, you can then submit the GIR. It's really important to send that follow-up notification to the RIC to let them know it's there. Sometimes the system does it, but the system can be wonky, and sometimes it just sits there without anyone having approved it. Here's an example of a TTM report with some challenges. The referee writes, "The player in white hit the player of the opposing team from behind into the boards. The player being hit was unable to protect themselves. The offending player has been a problem all season. For his actions, I assessed a minor penalty and a game misconduct for checking from behind. It was a vicious and unnecessary hit. The white player was going around the ice all game looking for trouble. He has been a problem all season." Do you see the challenges with this report? There are a few of them. Let's show you how we can change that. So here are some of the problems with that report. The player being hit was unable to protect themselves. Okay, so if a player is unable to protect themselves on a checking from behind, what's the penalty? Well, it has to be a match penalty. Okay, It also in the next line says the offending player has been a problem all season. Well, why are we putting that there? It's not relevant to the hockey play that we saw here and the penalty that we assessed, and suggests that we have some bias towards that player. All we have to do to write this report is indicate the justification why this call was made. We don't need all the extra commentary. So you can see in the next line, a minor penalty in a game misconduct was assessed for checking from behind, but we earlier indicated that they're unable to protect themselves. Therefore, a match should have been called. The next line is problematic as well. It was a vicious and unnecessary hit. The white player was going around the ice all game looking for trouble. He has been a problem all season. So now we've said that twice, and we also talked about their behavior throughout the game. In this situation particularly, that information isn't necessary. We're focused on the hit, why it's a justification for a checking from behind penalty. So how could we write that a little bit better? Well, how about this? The player in white hit the player of the opposing team from behind into the boards behind the net in the white defending zone with a high degree of violence. The player being hit was unable to protect themselves due to the distance from the boards and the violence of impact. While the player being hit was not injured on the play, the offending player was assessed a match penalty for checking from behind as there was no ability for the opposing player to protect themselves. Do you see the difference there? We give a little bit more description about where the penalty occurred on the ice. We indicate the degree of violence of the hit, the fact that the player was unable to protect themselves. That's a perfect justification for why it's a match penalty. We also indicate that the player wasn't injured, but it's still a match penalty because the player was in a vulnerable position. What we removed was any personal attitude or perspective on what the player was doing or why he was doing it, et cetera, et cetera. We can't get into people's minds like that, right? So the focus here is really on the action of the player and the justification for why it's a penalty while leaving our personal opinions out of this. This is just one example of a TTM report. We can do this all day. We can write up lots of different cases, lots of different kinds. But remember, keep the focus on the justification for the penalty. Indicate the degree of violence of the hit to justify the penalty. Indicate whether there was an injury on the play, what part of the ice this occurred in for penalties of like slashing, those kinds of penalties. For misconduct penalties, game misconduct penalties, abusive behavior stuff, you want to indicate exactly what was said, okay? You want to put that in quotes so it's really clear to people reading the report that this is why the justification is there for the penalty, and they can assess it themselves and say, okay, yeah, this player called this player this or that, and that's why they received a gross misconduct penalty, for example. Remember, when you submit a game incident report, it goes to a number of people. It goes to the referee in chief of the branch. It goes to myself. It goes to people at the hockey office. It goes to the league. It goes to various branches and district chairs, association presidents. So it's really important that we keep the information factual. We keep our bias out of it and just focus on the facts and the justification for calling the penalty. I hope that helps a little bit. If you have any questions about this video or any of the videos in our series, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. My contact information is below. You can also reach out to the referee-in-chief of Hockey Eastern Ontario. His name is John Reed, and his contact information is below as well. You can also reach out to your association referee-in-chief, your district referee-in-chief, or a senior official in your particular district or association. I'm sure they'll be happy to answer any questions that you might have. Just before we go, a quick reminder, if you like this video, please go ahead and hit the like button, and you can subscribe to the channel. It gets all the latest content and all the upgraded great stuff that we have here, including the Rule of the Week series. Until next time, have a safe and wonderful week, and we'll see you back here real soon. All the best. People really do have a problem with making mistakes on the ice. I don't